Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the Weekly Comic Book Roundup, and we're moving on to our second and final video of the week, covering this week's miscellaneous Marvel books as well as this week's DC titles. Kicking things off with Werewolf by Night number 2. Where we left off in Werewolf by Night, Jake Gomez, our titular werewolf, had run afoul of three, well, monster-human hybrids, to be perfectly honest, with a little bit of tech thrown in for good measure. And so, the issue begins where the last one left off, with Jake taking on the three augmented were-creatures, I guess, and actually kind of losing to them. He does manage to do some. He does manage to get some hits in, but still, he tries to be much more. He usually tries to be more peaceful, so he's kind of out of his depth. And so Molly then tries to find him. And later on at the reservation's municipal center, Molly and Jake's grandmother are basically saying, "Hey, Jake disappeared. It's rain. We got to find him. It's raining." A couple marshals are present, offering to help out. Now it turns out these marshals were in the first issue. I actually was unaware that one of them is actually, in fact, the hero known as Red Wolf. But yeah, Red Wolf states that they believe that Molly saw what she says she did. And they've been tracking nature's anomalies all over the Southwest. Back with Jake, he washes ashore, does some flashing back to, reverts to human form, has some flashbacks. First off, turns out that my theory was mistaken, or at least so far, about connections to the older Werewolf by Night from Marvel Comics, Jack Russell. But we do get to see some of Jake's dad. Apparently, Jake's dad was an enforcer for a gang, Los Lobos, the Wolves. It looks like they could be a bike gang, but they could just be a gang. Then, his mom got sick, and but he learned about the connections between the wolf and, his heritage, and yeah, it's, as well as, his dad's connections to all of it. It's not just, his dad was a werewolf too, but just took it and went down a different path. He explains that he sees the blood that made his dad and their ancestors, the violence that built them, but he also sees a celebration in the dance, the love and passion of their people, of all people. There's a voice inside him. He said there's something inside him telling him that his dad never connected to not only to each other, but also to the whole. Past with the present, but now they must choose their future. He and his dad are wolves that chose different diets. Doesn't mean they can't change for better or for worse. Next day, Red Wolf and his partner go to where Molly said she saw the fight happen. Red Wolf sees some echoes of the fight itself. Apparently, there's an echo there of great pain, but a pain that came before the fight. And he has the feeling that the stolen indigenous people are more connected to everything that's going on than they might think. At Life Pharmaceuticals, Dr. Mikowski is the head of the company, is being briefed on the new security team, who've been set out with orders to capture the creature. And apparently the security team is scouring the desert as they speak. The doctor, whom we see, looks a bit odd. States that the creature's gotten bolder, hardly, and is showing more than just his face. And she wants this creature found. So Jake gets up later on in the day. It's almost sundown. And he's trying to make his way home, trying to beat sundown home. Comes upon a chopper of the security team, and around the same time, as they fly by, because he hid behind a rock, Red Wolf and his partner show up, and Jake figures they must be the ground support for the chopper. As he runs, night falls, and well, he is Werewolf by Night, so he turns. Red Wolf tries to talk sense into him. And does use, and the issue ends with Jake attacking Red Wolf and his partner, and Red Wolf's partner zapping with a taser, while Red Wolf hits him with a pouch of, I'm not sure what he's using, but yeah. That is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next book. Maestro, number 4. Where we left off, Maestro had left the city and returned with the so-called Dogs of War and attacked the city with them, and apparently this drew the attention of Hercules, and well, Hercules was rightfully mad. So Herc begins fighting off the Dogs of War, and Hulk insults the people as the dogs attack. Herc waves the dogs like it's nothing, because to him it is. Hercules attacks, Hulk attacks Hercules and is promptly blocked. And then, holding Hulk by just his big toe, that famous scene from the first Avengers film is recreated, but with Hulk and Loki, or with Hulk as Loki and Hercules as Hulk. When all's said and done, Hercules walks away saying puny Banner, though he gets bum rushed. And he's still no match for Hercules, though. And Herc soundly beats him. Basically explaining, that, yeah, sure, when Hulk was mindless, he could eat, he was a match for Hercules. But with Banner's mind and control, Banner knows that he has limitations. Banner's able to keep calm. Banner won't just keep on pushing on. Not the way Hulk will. And so, Hulk gives up. Hercules invites him back into the palace, for good food and female companionship, but Hulk says that, not right now. He hasn't earned it. He insulted and attacked Herc's subjects, defied Herc, so he has to make amends. So he'll come back in the future, when he can do so sufficiently. Agents of of Hercules, as well as Rick Jones's granddaughter Wash, both saying this will not end well. And Rick Jones agrees that it won't, explaining that, you know, Bruce Banner, the man who saved his life, was one splintered personality. And that what's happening is Bruce is turning into his abusive father. He's not going to give up. He'll scheme, plot, and eventually win. And while it might take some time, he'll come back, and then Herc will die. So eventually, Hulk returns, looking much more like the Maestro that we know from Future Imperfect, with a lovely young lady. Who was offered up to Hercules. Her name is Anne Darnell. And so Hercules insists that Miss Darnell come back to his chambers with him. And so Hulk wants to see the throne room and everything else. But first, he needs to retrieve from outside. And as Anne and Hercules get better acquainted, she explains that Anne isn't the only name she goes by. Hercules figures, oh, Mistress of Pain, Madame Merciless. And she reveals the truth. Vapor of the UFOs. As she converts herself into arsine gas, the main ingredient of arsenic. And makes her way up into Hercules' lungs through his nose and mouth, killing him. He collapses, she escapes his body, the door is kicked open, and she is then frozen by Hulk. Who then shatters the frozen form of vapor and tells now his right-hand man take all the pieces and bury them individually, all over the kingdom, out in the plains. They can never make sure they can never reintegrate. And it seems that the Hulk has just taken over for Hercules. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our final Marvel book of the week. Marvel, number 2. So, most of you might not remember Marvel. The first issue came out, I want to say, back in March, before the world went to hell. Kind of an anthology series with you've got basically, it's Nightmare showing off the nightmares of the Earth to Doctor Strange. So we begin, much where we left off. Nightmare is torturing Doctor Strange, showing him nightmares from the Earth. Which brings us to our first tale. The Danger Room is Down. Written and illustrated by Dan Brereton. And you know what? I love Brereton's work. I always have, so yeah, I'm going to show it off a little bit. That's Brereton doing the all new, all different era of the X-Men. Along with the original 5 of the same time period. But apparently, all of the X-Men have been called together. There's supposed to be a training session. But something's wrong with the Danger Room. There's a note on the door saying the Danger Room is temporarily down for maintenance. They can't open the door. Angel tries to open the door. Iceman suggests he freezes the lock. Nightcrawler says he could easily teleport it past it. Thunderbird tries to rip the door open himself. Wolverine gets into an argument. Say, hey, let a professional try. Turns out this is a training exercise to see how well they work together. Everyone is deriding Wolverine. Colossus stating the Canadian is trouble, and Storm agreeing, saying he's a handful for certain. It's also pointed out that both he and Sunfire are certainly not team players. But apparently also the older X-Men seem to be in agreement that, you know, Wolverine is probably the one. If Xavier was to cut loose any of them, it should probably be Wolverine. But eventually the doors open and the X-Men enter the danger room. Logan triggers the blades. Beast saves him. And actually, you know, Wolverine says, hey, I owe you one. He then asks Colossus if Russians play baseball. And then explains he's going to teach Colossus how to throw a fastball. And we get the first try of a fastball special. And it seems the opinions of Wolverine have changed. He's raw, belligerent, and untamed, but most of all, he's definitely an X-Man. Brings us to our next tale. Leave the demon, take the cannoli. We begin in Latveria. Dr. Doom has captured the Silver Surfer and summons a demon, Gathonagog, to take over to possess the body of the Surfer, as the Surfer's raw cosmic power could actually contain the demon's form, or the demon's power. At the Baxter Building, Mr. Fantastic and Johnny Storm are going on taking a vacation. Same with Sue Storm. Even Ben to keep an eye on things by himself. He just hangs out for a while. And he realizes he's got to go down to Giuseppe's cannoli to get the perfect treat for the day. It's 10:30 in the morning. It's already a line around the block when Spider-Man shows up. Turns out it's Aunt May's birthday. Peter was on his way to get her birthday cannoli when Green Goblin had showed up mucking things up. Pumpkin bombing a Bob's Big Boy. Who does that? And Ben gets his cannoli, and just as he's paying for it, also it should be noted it's the last one, a web line grabs onto it. Ben just simply tosses Peter away and heads back to the Baxter Building. But Peter follows and tries to take the cannoli again. And however, before they can continue their disagreement, Doom and Gathonagog arrive. So Spidey and the Thing team up against the possessed Silver Surfer. And Spidey uses one of Reed's inventions, a temporal displacement collider, to basically exorcise Gathonagog. Oh, God, I hope I said that right. From the Surfer. However, it's discovered after they help the Surfer that Doom is long gone, and with Doom also gone with Doom is the cannoli, which apparently was his plan all along. Which brings us to the next story, the Vision in Unfazed. The Vision's trapped beneath a building and thinking about it, his various powers, and how their uses. He say that he is apparently he dresses a woman's wounds inside and gets out, and it turns out that he's helping other heroes with a collapsed building, and inside of him he's holding a young girl, named Chloe, and who's a fan of Captain America. So Chloe gets to meet Cap, but Vision's been using his cape to dress the wounds of those he comes across. But apparently, Chloe's father is also underneath, matching shirt, Captain America, with Cap's shield. Though Chloe states that her father will have to suck in his gut if he's going to escape the same way that Chloe did. And so Strange tells Nightmare they played out the scenario time and again, and always ends with Nightmare's defeat. Always. So Nightmare clarifies this scenario. Vanquishing the world was not the conclusion, just the beginning. There are an infinite number of powerful realms. And Doctor Strange will get to watch Nightmare take them all. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to this week's DC titles, of which we had a whopping 2. Kicking things off with Dark Knight's Death Metal, Multiverse Who Laughs. This is another compilation one-shot. We begin with a brief opening from starring the Robin King. Scary stories to tell in the dark multiverse. But he's sitting around a fire with the other goblins. He's telling stories. And so he wondered maybe you should start with the desperate scientists on a doomed world who saved their last son by sending him to be raised by a kindly couple on Earth. Or the princess who leaves her paradise island to bring peace to the world of men. Or the story of a boy in an alley who loses everything and swears an oath on his dead parents' bodies to dedicate his life to end all crime. Wait, you've heard all those before. So, of course you've heard the story of the Robin King, how he killed every dumb hero in his world and became king. But what about the spoiled rich kid who watched his parents die in an alley, who became evil, took over the world, and is about to kill a god? Because that's what's going on with Darkest Night. He's fighting Perpetua. And so he starts coming up with new stories. A world where the last son of Krypton was just a wee baby boy in his wee baby rocket when the rocket passed through a cosmic radiation storm from a black hole. By the time he crashed in Smallville, he was left with a powerful hunger that could only be satisfied with burning human flesh. Or the Flash, who wanted to share his gifts with everyone, but the Speed Force evolved everybody into vicious predatory speed monsters. Society's build and collapse in seconds. The human race blasting its ultimate heat death within hours. And then there's the Green Man from Mars. His little race killed, so he decided to restart them here on Earth. But he needed hosts. We basically get the combination of the Xenomorph and Martian Manhunter, which is so funny considering that it ain't DC who's got the rights to that franchise. Or a world where instead of bringing peace to the world of men, Wonder Woman decided to bring war to the gods and strip them of their power, pulling so tightly on the lasso around Zeus's neck that his head just popped right off. Or how about when Jon Stewart blew up a whole world? Like, seriously, a whole world. And nothing happened. Think of Jon living in fear of it happening again. And so instead of creeping into the soul of Hal Jordan, Parallax creeps into the soul of Jon Stewart, vowing to never let another world fall on his watch, even if it meant enslaving them. Or Aquaman, who's more fish than man, raised in the trench. When he finally came to the surface, he was disgusted by what he saw and sank it all. Billions drowned. Or Lois Lane, who knew that in order for humanity to save, the only way to save humanity was to kill the heroes. And she's wearing a power armor with the Superman shield on it, holding the trident of Aquaman's trident with appears to be Superman's skull impaled on it, and wearing all of the lantern rings on her other hand. Those are the types of stories that inhabit the Dark Multiverse. And so we begin with Feeding the Beast. Victor Zsasz is being taken to Arkham. And he knows what he wants to be transformed. When he arrives, though, Arkham is nice. With the warden being polite and welcoming. And he's in group therapy alongside Calendar Man, Kite Man, and Maxie Zeus. And he's trying to be transformed. However, the next one to be transformed is none other than Kite Man. And so, Zsasz, enraged, goes back to see what's going on with Kite Man, only for the warden to shoot Zsasz. Turns out, though, well, they have more than enough killers. The surface of the world is crawling with and cleansed by them. They have death, darkness, and sorrow, but now they want music, poetry, and whimsy. Zsasz wouldn't like it. And the story ends with two new arrivals. Condiment King, I don't offhand know who Cornelius is, but he is apparently a cannibal. And it turns out all of the inmates that were aside from Zsasz, that were part of the sharing circle, have been transformed. Next up, we have the Super Threats. Crypto returns to Earth, and now Earth has a ring around it. That's not that. And now there are also lots and lots of people in people's bodies in orbit. So he finds a Hall of Justice, which is looking kind of messed up. And Beppo is trying to explain what happened. There was some kind of outbreak. It did spread to the Super Pets. Beppo worked tirelessly on a cure. But while he was trying to, the Super Pets got out. Everything just went to hell. And, well, by the time it was all done, they were the only ones left. Crypto's wife and 6 pups are gone. However, the Super Pets, aside from Beppo and Crypto, changed back. It's explained that Beppo didn't have time to test the cure. These weren't normal circumstances. Just as the duo was attacked by the diseased Super Pets. Which brings us to Hard Traveled. New OS Subsector 070, formerly known as Star City, where our tale takes place. 2 teenagers are on the run from were apparently Steel Guardians when they run into Green Arrow, who says the Steel Guardians won't catch them. Steel Guardians appear to be hovering heads, hovering, hovering mechanical versions of the Guardians' heads. Ollie takes them out with a pair of arrows when Hal shows up, who tries to justify everything the Guardians have done. All he figures that what it's got to be is that damn ring of Hal's, whispering to him all day and night, twisting him up inside. And Ollie asks him to please take the ring off. Hal considers for a second, but says that he can't, because Earth needs to be protected. And so Ollie draws an arrow. One trick left in the bag. Yellow cedar with Hal's name on it. And that's where the story ends. Which brings us to, I believe, yes, our final tale, the Fear Index. Man's running through Metropolis. Apparently the Fear Index is at 8 at night. Not expected to drop below 7 until next week. For the last 2 years, Jonathan Crane's fear toxin has covered the Earth. The narrator's lost track of the exact number of days. The perfect record he was supposed to be keeping for the future generations that finally beat this thing. Well, apparently, having lost her daughter, the narrator just doesn't matter to him anymore. But a man's running through and he's attacked by others who rip off the gas mask he's wearing. And he begins to hallucinate, seeing his assaulters now as a malformed Bane, a malformed Nightfall Batman, when a giant hammer comes and stops the three of them. The hammer is wielded by none other than Steel, who takes down the three would-be muggers. And injects the young man with an antitoxin. The young man introduces himself as Jean Paul Valley. And it's discovered that Steele's helmet actually has some cracks in it, even in the face piece. And so Jean Paul asks, the index is at 8. Without protection, Steele should be out of his mind. This explains Crane's the gas doesn't hit everyone the exact same way. And Steele explains it as a theory. Says the things that some of us and our ancestors have been forced to endure: brutality, humiliation, oppression, constant attacks on humanity. Something gets calloused inside of them, so they can even function without tearing it all down. So maybe the air is filled with fear now, but for him it's just Tuesday. And so Jean-Paul asks if Steele can teach him how to be like that. And Steele says that he can teach Jean-Paul how to feel that fear, that you'll lose everything that matters at any moment, through no real fault of your own. Teach you to feel that and still move forward. You just have to believe there's a day coming when you won't need to, and know how to fight long enough to reach it. He puts his helmet back on and says, until then, the index is stuck at 8 and there's always more work to do. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our final comic of the week. Legion of Superheroes, number 11. Where we left off, Mordru the Mystic had summoned forth, what was the guy's name? Rogol Zar to take on John Kent. Also, questions were being asked about a pending Great Darkness. The rundown of what's happened previously is done by Mon-El. The issue begins with the Legion at Mon-El's home, seeing Mon-El's children. When they're suddenly attacked by a giant winged creature and a fleet of ships of some type. Zar attacks Mon-El's grandfather, Zod, and we then go to Xanthu, where Superman, Saturn Girl, and Dr. Fate are exploring, looking for, well, Mordru. They find a piece of what it seems to be the old cape of Superman. Fate attempts to conjure an examination spell to determine exactly which cape it is, and suddenly explodes. On Rimbor, Ultra Boy, who's been named the leader of the planet, says, "Okay, fine, I accept, but we're going to do things differently." As his first act, he dismantles the glorified War Council and calls for free and fair elections on all of Rimbor. Though, of course, no one likes that idea. But he has to show he does have to fight off a few of the locals right quick. Then it's a kind of might makes right type of thing. Back on Earth, Triplicate Girl goes to visit Dream Girl to ask about the Great Darkness, because now one of them is seeing the Great Darkness in her dreams. As they're discussing it, however, their computer informs that Krypton is under attack. On the low levels of Daxam, Rose, Block, Lightning Lass, and Cosmic Boy are supposed to be meeting with someone. And they're also asking Rose about her, the fact that she's 1,000 years old. And she explains who she used to be known as Rose and Thorn, and however, Mordru promptly attacks, sending Block elsewhere and taking Cosmic Boy prisoner, while Thorn, for the first time in ages, comes out to play. Makes her presence known. However, Mordru basically kind of pushes her away. Brainiac meets with Gold Lantern and White Witch. The White Witch wishes to perform a metaphysical analysis of the Power Ring. However, there's a full Legion alert about the attack on Krypton, the destruction, Dr. Fate's apparent disintegration, what's happening on Rimbor, what's happening on Daxam, yeah. And so everyone's headed to Krypton. Including Superman and Saturn Girl, with Superboy and Saturn Girl, Superboy asking when he was going to learn about Krypton. And he would be told about it, and she explains that he was going to be told when he was ready, or when the planet was ready. Apparently, protocol states that each planet gets to set their own rules. Krypton has its own ways, and they were just honoring them. She even adds, you saw how upset Mon-El was about you being in the Century. There was a way for that nonsense to work itself out. Brainiac, as they get closer to the planet, Brainiac contacts them and tells them, tries to get Superboy to leave. Upon arriving, however, he finds Rogol Zar, who's apparently waited a very long time to see John Kent again. And that is where the issue ends. And that's it for this week's roundup. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long, rock hard, and have a safe and happy Thanksgiving, everybody.